The entryway was a heavy contrast from the hot sunlight and deep shadows. Waiting there, looking uncomfortably warm, was a middle-aged man, his tie sloppily loosened and his jacket tucked underneath his arm.
Are you Maibara-san? Keiichi Maibara-san?
There's no question that he wasn't a resident of Hinamizawa, and that this was without a doubt the first time he had met me. Ever since I met Tomitake-san, it seemed I was fated to meet middle-aged men. That's right. Who might you be?
I have the AC on in my car. Let's talk there. It's a bit hot here, don't you think?
The man, completely ignoring my question, pointed over to his car parked near the gate and began walking. You've got to be kidding me. I had no intention of going along with some geezer I didn't even know. And he was asking me to get in his car with him?
I'm not going by. Come on.
He opened the back door of his car and called me over. I didn't like this old man, but I wanted to know what this was about. Even while knowing that conversations that start out like this have never led to anything good. The inside of his car was pretty cool. Cars with air conditioners were supposed to be a luxury. My dad didn't have one in his car, at least.
Please, let me know if it's too cold for you, okay? I have a habit of cranking it all the way up.
So what business do you have with me? Out of spite, I decided to ignore his remark the same way he did to me and start my own line of questioning. He pulled out a notepad from his pocket and took out a picture that was stuck between the pages. On it was the face of a pretty goofy-looking guy.
If you know anything related to this individual, then please tell me.
Who the heck is this? I doubt even his close friends would be able to recognize who he was from this expressionless picture. Looked like he was taken at the DMV.
There were scribbles on his shirt done in permanent marker. Starting with yours, Maibara-san, and quite a few of your classmates signed as well.
Huh? This is Tomitake-san? There was no hint of his usual unreliable and easygoing personality in this photo. It was an expressionless, half-asleep face.
Then, do you know this woman?
Even before seeing it, I had a good idea of who it was. I don't remember her name, but she's some lady who was with Tomitake-san last night. I didn't know what her name was, but I did know she was a resident of Hinamizawa.
When was the last time you saw these two?
The night of the Watanagashi, we spoke. They seemed pretty close, I guess.
Did anything bother you about them? Anything is fine. Go ahead and say it.
Being asked for every little detail is very troubling, honestly. I had a pretty good idea of who this guy was by now. Did something happen to them? There was no response to my inquiry. Thus, I replied to that silence in kind. I was pretty sure, no, certain that this guy was a cop. Then why? Why was he asking about Tomitake-san? Did something happen to him? More importantly, why me? Shouldn't there have been plenty of other people who knew more about him than I did? The roar of the air conditioner felt unbearably loud. After a long pause, he finally spoke again.
You've moved here just recently. Isn't that right, Maibara-san? Are you aware, I wonder, about the stories of Oyashiro-sama?
My heart began to race. I'm pretty terrible at hiding things. Probably showed on my face.
Not at all? If you don't, then that's fine.
Well, I have heard of it. Tomitake-san told me, actually.
How much do you know about it?
The dismemberment killing. The accidental death. The death by illness followed by suicide. And the lady who was beaten to death. The incidents that always happened the day of the Watanagashi. ending in suspicious deaths. I don't think Tomitake-san would have kept anything from me. I think that was everything. No, rather, I didn't want to think there was anything more than that.
Maebara-san, do you believe in the curse? Feel free to speak openly about it.
I don't believe in it. My answer was instant. It wasn't so much that I didn't believe in it, as I was on the verge of believing. I wanted to clear away my own doubts. That was the more prominent feeling.
Really? Then that's great. Guess you really are one of those city-raised boys.
So what if I don't believe? I have friends waiting, so could you get to the point?
The man in this picture is dead.
My mind went blank. Huh? What happened to Tomitake-san?
It would seem that he died last night. That was the night of the Watanagashi. Do you understand the implications behind that, Maebara-san?
Implications? Not any for the cause of his death or the reasons behind it. The real problem was that he died on the day of the Watanagashi. Meaning, this year. The curse of Oyashiro-sama had once again...
The death of Jiro Tomitake is still confidential. You can understand why that is, right?
I didn't want to understand why. Please tell me what happened.
It was rather peculiar. It might be a little too graphic for someone born and raised in Hinamizawa.
It was a roundabout way of saying it, but it caused me to doubt whether or not I wanted to hear the rest. I would only regret forcing myself to learn something I shouldn't. Or at least that's how I figured I would feel if I listened to the rest.
One of our patrol cars discovered the body on the way back from security detail at the festival. It was late, about 5 till midnight. The location was, you know where the road into town becomes paved, right? Down past the slope, on the shoulder around there.
There were few streetlights on that road. Its pitch-black darkness was only broken by the lights of passing cars and the moon. It was a stroke of luck that Tomitake-san was spotted collapsed on the shoulder of the road. Tomitake-san was face down, covered in blood. Blood and muck covered the asphalt.
We thought it was a hit and run at first. But when the officer checked to see if he was still alive, he quickly noticed something abnormal. His throat had been ripped open.
From a knife or something?
No. Nails.
Nails? As in fingernails? You mean his neck was clawed through?
From the coroner's report, it was revealed that it was with his own nails.
Huh? What does that mean? Basically, it means it wasn't a murder. It was suicide. Tomitake-san, whatever was going through his mind, tore open his own throat. As hard as he could with his own nails. Tore through the skin until he started to bleed. And even then, Tomitake-san didn't stop. He continued clawing. With enough intensity that it could have peeled off his nails. Still clawing. Still clawing. Then, as his nails reached those vital arteries that you should never damage, he continued clawing. Blood splattered on the ground around him. As he bled, while gasping for breath, he collapsed. His body spasmed, and he died in agony.
We thought drugs were to blame, but nothing of that nature was detected.
But this, it was suicide? I've never heard of such a thing. This unnatural way of dying. If this wasn't a mysterious death, then what was? The way he died. In these 5 years, his death most resembled that of a curse. As if to show both myself and Tomitake-san, who proclaimed there was no such thing as a curse. that we were wrong.
There were a few more suspicious details. From his body chemistry, perspiration, epilation, and so on, we concluded that he was in a state of hysteria right before his death.
That was a given. It's hard to believe someone could be in a sound state of mind while clawing out their throat.
Wounds on his hand matched a discarded piece of lumber found nearby. There were traces of where he struck trees and the guardrails with it. Tomitake-san's blood was found all over the place. Meaning
that while tearing at his own throat, he was swinging around a piece of lumber.
there were external injuries which were not self-inflicted, discovered on Tomitake-san. There is a high probability Tomitake-san was assaulted. The external injuries suggest there may be multiple suspects.
To summarize, Tomitake-san was surrounded and attacked. While wandering the night roads in a state of panic, after being cornered, he picked up a piece of lumber and tried fighting back. Somewhere in there, he began madly tearing at his own throat, clawing at it. Then, he died.
The presumed time of death was between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m., meaning it occurred right after you finished talking to Tomitake-san at the festival.
Everyone signed Tomitake-san's shirt, then parted ways. Right after that... Oh yeah, he should have been with a woman. What about her?
She's missing. She hasn't shown up to work and she hasn't returned home either. There is a very high probability that she was involved in this incident.
For a while, I could only gaze off into space. I never would have thought that something unfortunate happening to somebody close to me could affect me this deeply. The time I had spent with Tomitake-san was short. But we went to the same festival, spent time together, and took part in the same competition. He was one of us.
We have been continuing the investigation on various fronts, but when it comes to Oyashiro-sama's curse, the villagers here aren't very cooperative.
That I knew well. I would have been none the wiser if not for Tomitake-san, the outsider, telling me. So that's why you came to me? Because I'm not originally from Hinamizawa? I should have been angry that that was the reason he wanted to hear what happened from me.
If things go the way they have been, then the conclusion would be that Jiro Tomitake died from Oyashiro-sama's curse.
He turned away from me and gazed far off into the distance.
The night of the Watanagashi, during that sacred ritual, he callously snapped off photos, angering Oyashiro-sama. That's how it's going to turn out.
There's no way Oyashiro-sama would inflict divine punishment on Tomitake-san. Tomitake-san had to have been killed by humans, in a cowardly group no less. There's no way I'm gonna let this end up being the fault of some curse.
I think so as well. There's no such thing as divine punishment or curses.
The tense mood was cut with the man's hearty laugh.
That's how this must be, Maibara-san. Cooperation from individuals in Hinamizawa who don't believe in the curse is indispensable. Understand?
Neither Tomitake-san nor I believed in curses. But with the way things were going, it would just end up with Tomitake-san's death marking the 5th year. Which would mean that Hinamizawa had rejected Tomitake-san. That was something I couldn't allow. Tomitake-san was one of us. He didn't live in Hinamizawa, but he came every single year. In a sense, he was more of a resident than I was. There was no way that Tomitake-san could have been cursed by Oyashiro-sama. But there's nothing I could do to help. I have no idea what happened that night either.
No. If you see or hear something that draws your attention, then that is enough.
If I see or hear, he was talking in the future tense.
Things or people or rumors? Anything is fine. I don't care if they're unfounded. Here, this is my number. If I'm not there, then just leave a message with whoever picks up.
He handed me a piece of paper with his number on it, but I hesitated for a second. If I took it, then whether I wanted to or not, I'd be mired knee-deep in this matter.
Please, help me solve these questions surrounding Tomitake-san's unfortunate death.
That's right. Why was I hesitating? I needed to find the murderer who killed my friend. I snatched up the piece of paper as a satisfied grin spread across his face.
Everything we spoke of today is a secret. Please keep this confidential.
Understood.
From your friends as well. Especially from Sonozaki-san and Furude-san. Please do not inform them.
Sonozaki? You mean Mion? Why? Are you saying they have something to do with the incident? With my friends' names brought up so abruptly, and being told to keep it a secret from them, I became rather angry.
This is what they call investigative privilege, I suppose.
Don't play games with me. Mion is a close friend of mine. I snapped at him, but he didn't seem to especially be offended.
I wouldn't mind telling you, but it may upset you.
Say it. He hesitated a little. Turning his gaze to the outside of the car, he began to speak after thinking for a bit.
There is a possibility that the string of incidents happening here in Hinamizawa are a result of a village conspiracy.
There's no way that could be right. Give me a break. First of all, is there any proof of that?
No evidence. Also, each of the cases were resolved, and none of the perpetrators had any direct connection to the village.
Then how did you come to that conclusion?
Every year, the enemies of the village die on the day of the Watanagashi. Don't you think that's enough reason to suspect something?
Only the residents of Hinamizawa felt that the day of the Watanagashi was sacred. So basically, because incidents happen on that day, it was somehow related to Hinamizawa?
First it was the dam construction foreman. Then it was a villager that supported it. Those the village hold a grudge against die one after the other, from mysterious causes. The means are different, but in the end the result is the same.
Unfounded, unreasonable suspicion. But it couldn't just be shrugged off. So, the victims after that. What about the Shinto priest and his wife's death? They weren't enemies of the village.
The villagers had expected leadership from the Shinto priest at the time of the dam dispute, but he wasn't proactive, so there was a faction of villagers who harbored ill will towards him as a result.
Ill will? It's not like he did anything bad to the village. What about that housewife after that? Did she die just because she was the wife of the brother of a supporter? That's such a trivial reason to kill someone. And what about Tomitake-san? He's not affiliated with the dam project at all. Was he killed just because he was an outsider? In the beginning, it fell on those related to the dam project. But as the years went on, the enemy threshold of the victims had become much lower.
Well, that's the scary part. The bar keeps getting lower.
What's scary about that?
It means it's not just enemies of the village anymore. Just being an outsider could be reason enough.
Then, you're saying that next year's victim will be picked out of the village outsider pool?
It might be a person that just moved here.
What do you mean by... I swallowed my words. Here in Hinamizawa, the ones who would be considered the most outside would be my family. I was proof enough of that, wasn't I? I still couldn't really remember the names of the people I passed by. Then the next victims. My family. Was he saying it was going to be me? But what does that have to do with Mion?
I can't go into details, but the Sonozaki family led the dam protests. Quite fervently so. This is also true of Mion Sonozaki-san herself. She has quite a few misdemeanor and obstruction of public worker offenses on her record because of the protests.
I knew Mion had fought. This was the first I'd heard of her family leading the protests, though. Then, well, what did it all mean? Are you saying that Mion's family's involved with this string of incidents?
I wouldn't go that far. I'm just saying that if it was a conspiracy, then they'd have the highest probability of being behind it.
Not a very clear explanation. It felt like he'd magnificently avoided the details I really wanted to know.
We don't know who or how involved anyone is right now. That is exactly why I don't want you to say anything to the villagers.
Instead of answering, I gave a very bitter expression. It seemed that he understood it well enough.
Then think of it like this. I don't want to worry the villagers who blindly believe it's the curse. How about that?
What do you mean, how about that? How should I know? But the reasoning behind wanting me to not carelessly open my mouth about it wasn't too hard to comprehend. The perpetrator was here. It had nothing to do with a curse. He was definitely going to be caught by the police and made to pay for his crimes. And none of the villagers should have anything to do with that process. It may cause those sensitive about the curse to just worry needlessly. Just like everyone kept it from me so I wouldn't worry about it. Is it now my turn to keep it from them so they don't have to worry? I was just talking to myself. Unlike me, everyone else had been worrying over these mysterious incidents yearly. And the incident this time probably means a lot more to them. I didn't want to burden them anymore. In the end, everything went as the man had wanted, as insipid as it was, but it couldn't be helped. I understand. I'll keep it to myself. Is that fine? Mr.
Oishi, from the Okinomiya police station. You can call me Kura-chan if you want.
No, Oishi-san is fine. The way he said it was unpleasant, yet retained hints of politeness. He was the spitting image of a vulgar police officer. Though I've never seen one this bulky before in the cop shows I watch.
I've taken up too much time. Your friends are waiting, aren't they? I should probably let you get back to them.
The door opened with a click and in streamed the oppressive heat. It was blistering outside of the car. Was it really this hot of a day? It was an almost cruel heat, as opposed to the mechanical coolness inside the car. It was as if the land of Hinamizawa itself suddenly hated me. I felt a little sad as that thought crossed my mind.
I didn't mean to suspect your friends. Please don't misunderstand that.
I refrained from telling him that it was too late to say something that self-serving.
It's fine if you don't see or hear anything, Maebara-san. It would help to prove that the village is not involved after all.
I'll contact you if I hear or see anything. But I'm no detective. Please don't expect too much from me.
I won't. You don't have to become a detective. Just go on living as you have up until now. Just let me know if you notice anything.
I hastily made my way back to the school building after giving him a quick bow.
See you later. Farewell, Maebara-san.
I returned to the school building without looking back.